Hey everybody, welcome to video 3 over chapters 5 and 6. I'm Zach Giltz, and I look forward to talking through some of the things that I found really interesting and just kind of wanted to pull out from our textbook reading of chapters 5 and 6, which go over physical appearance, and then chapter 6, a little bit over kind of altering that appearance, some of the coverings and things that we can do there. So chapter 5 and chapter 6 are both really rich, but most of this video will be over chapter 5. So let's get into it. Physical appearance is often the first nonverbal factor in an interaction. So physical attractiveness, right? This is seems really intuitive, but someone who is more attractive to us, we are likely to communicate more with. Conversely, someone who is less attractive to us, we are less inclined to spend more time with. And so a lot of kind of the upcoming themes and studies and things like that really just further bear out that point. Something that kind of kept coming to my mind as I read through, especially again, chapter 5, is an episode of 30 Rock where Liz Lemon, played by Tina Fey, is hanging out with John Hamm throughout the episode, and he is just in this attractive bubble where all of his outcomes are just out of reach for her. He is just this, it's a satire, it's a hyperbole, right? It's a goofy TV show. But it really kind of points out the better outcomes for kind of more attractive, taller, the right body type kind of person. And I think that episode, again, just kind of kept coming to mind as I was reading through this because of kind of the cartoonishly outsized impact that our physical appearance has on our life outcomes. So interesting. A statement that came up a ton in chapter 5 is beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And it was always kind of like there's an asterisk by it, that is, yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but typically there's a universal attraction. So kind of no matter how many people were studied, it was borne out that most people found the same people attractive. But that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It might make someone a little bit more attractive or a little bit less attractive to you, but along that same line of general universal attraction. Something that I thought was really wild in this that makes sense, but didn't necessarily, not something that I would have thought of on my own, but the attractiveness is perceived. It does not exist on its own. The attraction and attractiveness has to be perceived to exist. There's not much I really want to do with that, but it's just something wild that really stood out to me. Another term that jumped out, and this one I thought was really fascinating, but was homophily. The idea that we are more likely to spend more time with people who look more like us, people who are in our same kind of attractiveness scale, people that are in our same social scale, all of those things. It really made me think of in abnormal psych, there's matching, which is really the same thing of we are just more drawn to people who are more like us. And then later in chapter 5, we get into the similarity hypothesis, which is exactly what it sounds like. And it's a reiteration of the same thing, right? People who are more similar to us, we are more drawn to. And so that's something that I thought was just interesting and kind of bringing in other classes into this, that kind of what we're learning across the board here is largely applicable overall. Several studies seem to be pretty intuitive. Attractive people tend to have better outcomes, especially when it comes to attractive females. A lot of studies focused more on females and kind of, again, just showed there was one study that like firstborn attractive females just had like better grades. They were able to manipulate things better. And there's a ton of factors that go into those studies. And so I think the book itself is kind of admitting of that like, hey, this might not be a one-to-one, but it's still an indicator that attractiveness has bearing on those outcomes. And then on the flip side of that, right, less attractive people tend to have less attractive life outcomes and are treated more poorly, are stereotyped more poorly, and all of those things. All of that is unfortunate, but I think kind of academically, I often think of students or adults, right, like college students or adults rather, in these studies, but the book points out that kids, there's children that have this similar negative treatment if they are less attractive and positive treatment if they're more attractive. And that's such a bummer to think about, that kids kind of have their story written for them just on how they look in 5th grade. And that's really rough, how that kind of follows you through so much. And so I think a lot of the people that I've kind of met through their videos in this class work with kids, including myself. And so I think this is something that really kind of grabbed me by the heart, if you will. It just makes me want to be sure that I am keeping myself accountable when working with students and children, that I'm not treating anyone any differently, but really taking into consideration the whole person. Social attractiveness can increase, personality can increase your social attractiveness. So there's a split here between physical attraction and social attraction, right? Physical attraction leans into social attraction, right? Again, as physical attraction is kind of that first thing you notice, that's going to be a key component of your social attraction. But social attraction allows for the incorporation of your personality as well, some of your character traits and things like that, so that you could be maybe moderately attractive, but funny or charming or whatever, and then be perceived as more attractive overall. So something that I thought was interesting, to some degree, social attraction can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you are more attractive and you get treated in more of a leadership position, then you become a leader, right? There's something, it's so ridiculous, but I'm going to reference it. Colin Cowherd is kind of a gotcha type of sports analyst. He talks about this thing called quarterback face all the time. And that is that the most handsome guy gets the most opportunities to play quarterback because the other kids kind of respect and revere that more attractive person just naturally, which seems like such a ridiculous take. But after reading this chapter, it kind of bears out. And then some other things to look into is body shape. And so this obviously has a big impact on what our body looks like, is our body shape. You have endomorphic, which is typically your more like plump or round body. These are thought to be shorter people. I thought this was really fascinating. You have your endomorphic, mesomorphic, and eptomorphic, and each of them has like a height characteristic within them, which I thought was just really bizarre because a lot of it is about kind of your more body shape being plumper or thinner or more athletic, but that they each kind of have a height attribute as well. So again, endomorphic is more plump or round, and these are thought to be more short-bodied. Mesomorphic is your more athletic or trim with kind of an average height, and then ectomorphic is thin, frail, and tall, which again, I thought kind of all of these were a bit bizarre, including the table that kind of even like the endomorphic or the more plump body was still like pretty fit. So I don't know, whatever, that's a table, it is what it is. This comes in with the assumption that each body type has personality traits tied to it, that an endomorphic person, again, kind of that plumper person, is going to be lazy, probably a bit more weak, typically less good looking, but are seen to be more agreeable, more trustworthy and things like that. Your ectomorphic, which is your thinner person, your taller person even, is going to be seen as ambitious, but also tense and quiet, stubborn and pessimistic. And then lastly, your mesomorphic is going to be your strong, masculine, adventurous, right? Mature, self-reliant, right? And so that mesomorphic body shape is clearly the most desirable of all those given those traits, but that we often embody kind of a handful of those at the same time, or rather two at the same time. So rarely are you fully mesomorphic, but you might be an endomesomorphic body type. Unsurprisingly, studies show discrimination against overweight children and adults, and for underweight children and adults as well. There's a study that shows that there's a group of students that went with a endomorphic student and then kind of just average sized other kids to get an apartment, and they were essentially discriminated against for having that larger person with them. And so we see again that there's just discrimination for these body shapes. Height is a part of this as well. Taller people, especially men, have better outcomes. Shorter people tend to have less favorable outcomes. Again, it's just how people are perceived. and things like that. And then lastly, just to touch on chapter 6 before wrapping up this super long video. If you're still there, thank you so much for hanging out to the end of this. But a natural progression of this physical attraction is that there are body alterations and coverings. So just things to kind of change how you look, whether it's what you're wearing or how you wear your hair, getting tattoos, piercings, things like that. But just changing that initial thing that people see. And again, chapter 6 is more about that, but I have gone well over the expected time on this. So I apologize, and I really hope if you stuck around that something in there was helpful or made you think. And I look forward to seeing y'all's videos as well. Thanks so much for hanging out.